Welcome, friends. Welcome to my special webinar series on Indian economy insights. And today, basically, the topic is whether India to achieve 5 trillion economy target by 2025. So, lots of debates are happening around media and various forums whether it's possible for Indian economy to touch 5 trillion mark or not in next 5 years. So I take this opportunity to highlight some of the facts and figures of Indian economy and to let you know how through innovation and branding power India can actually touch the 5 trillion mark in next couple of years. So we'll proceed to our first slide. Here you can see we are describing where we are as a country today, where India is today. So if you see here, India is today at the size of 2.73 trillion USD economy, and which is roughly around 3%, more than 3% of the total world share as far as the GDP is concerned. And as for the ranking of the Indian economy is concerned, globally it is ranked in today's scenario. As of now, we are talking in October 2017, it is ranked at the 7th position, and above India you have US, which is the topmost economy, followed by China, Japan, Germany, United Kingdom, France. So what's the outlook for the Indian GDP growth? If you see in the next curve, so even the world GDP outlook is a bit conservative, and even the average outlook of the emerging market and developing market are forecasted here a bit conservative, but the Indian GDP outlook is higher than these two outlooks we discuss about. Though in recent time there has been some kind of slowdown has been observed in Indian GDP growth rate compared to what was estimated earlier. So now, despite of robust growth in the past year, 2017-18, which was hovering around 7.2%, the current year GDP growth rate for India has been revised down to 6.1% from 7.5% projected earlier. So I see it as a temporary phenomenon. I see it's happening due to certain sectoral problem, due to their own structural issue or some kind of disruptions happening in those markets, which the local players are not able to address in a well responsive manner. So, like here, I can mention the automobile sector, which is much discussed sector in India, how it is struggling with pile up the inventory and lower slowdown, but I believe that the disruption is hitting the automobile sector, which they could not anticipate in time and they could not have in a responsive mechanism. See, the whole model of transportation is moving from the asset model to utility model or services model, and enough has been discussed across that, how the story of Uber and Ola has emerged in India and how it has impacted the automobile sales. So automobile company has to analyze what kind of disruption they are passing through and how they should respond to those disruptions to come back into the growth mode. Now, with these kind of some of the segmental specific disruptions, we are saying that even global growth is having some kind of falling sentiment, and the global growth is expected to fall to 3.2% in 2019 due to heightened policy uncertainty, trade tensions, and declining business and consumer confidences. Even China economy recorded its lowest rate of growth at the 6% in more than 27 years as the effect of the trade war with the United States compounds cooling of the demand. So in nutshell, though Indian forecast GDP growth forecast being downgraded, but still it is better than many other economy and the world economy on average itself, because it's not a local phenomena that some kind of slowdown has been observed in India only, but it is getting observed in China and to some part of US, to other economies also. Now, with the admission of the fact that certain deceleration has happened in India in the recent past, so but do have a potential to grow. Now let's talk of the future. Do have the potential to grow. So I personally believe that India has a lot of potential to grow. That's why the today agenda is to discuss how far and how soon we are going to touch 5 trillion target mark. So if you see this particular screen and graph, the one and what time we have ranked the Indian economy with respect to global innovation index, how innovative Indian economy is. You see that here the ranking on the Indian economy is at 52 numbers, and it is much below compared to the topmost economies which are innovative also, like the economy of USA, like Sweden, United Kingdom, Finland, Germany. And if you map further the innovation ranking of these countries with compared to the GDP per capita in PPP US dollars, so if you see the India is figuring somewhere in and the middle of the entire uh, landscape of the country. So you can see here that we are not very highly innovative country. That's the region we are lagging behind in some kind of the per capita GDP also. So agenda here is to show you the opportunity that how innovation drives the economic growth, and that we have seen in other countries like US, where about 50% of the US annual GDP growth is due to increase in innovation. So the whole Silicon Valley initiative and the revolution you have in the US helped uh, particularly the higher growth in achieving higher growth for the US economy. Similarly, intangible assets like brand value, IP also contributes to GDP growth. So in US, share of intangible asset in GDP is around 8.8%. And Sweden has highest share of intangible assets in GDP of value 10.4%. India has potential to improve on global innovation index, on overall innovations, performance, and IP and brand value for achieving higher GDP growth. So in spite of segments happening in the traditional, some kind of slowdown happening in the traditional industry, I'm very confident that India has a lot of tremendous potential to grow. Particularly, it has not fully addressed the innovation constraint, or it has not fully addressed the branding opportunity or brand building opportunity or the IP kind of opportunity it has all across the knowledge economy. So the next is the question about, is India GDP is poised to hit 5 trillion by 2025? So the world is discussing this topic. You open the TV debate. The other day I was seeing there was TV debate happening between the ruling party a spokesperson and the opposition party, Congress party, a spokespersons, and where the Congress party spokesperson was just observing the present downturn and some of the segments of the Indian industry. He was saying that it's just not possible to touch 5 trillion marks by 2025. So I'm just going to counter those kind of allegations on the haywire of the economic working through this slide and further data which I'm analyzing here. So it is very clear that PM Modi has envisioned about turning India a 5 trillion economy by 2025, and some people have apprehensions on that target. And some people say that it is possible to touch 5 trillion only when India remains growing at the rate of 9% year on year for 5 years, for next 5 years, which looks like impossible because they are seeing the current downturn in Indian economy. It is not growing even at 7% in this year, but next year onwards, it's possible that, and it's even predicted that Indian economy will grow at the 7% year on year. So three simulations and three scenarios have been presented in this curve, which is beamed here in your screen. So first simulation says that if Indian economy remains growing at the rate of 9% year on year, then the 5 trillion target is reached by year 2025. So this is what the world is talking about, that yes, if India has to achieve 5 trillion target by 2025, then it has to grow year on year at the rate of 9%. But that is not happening. You know, this year the growth rate has been slipped down to the 6.1%, and next year it is predicted to again pick up by hover around 7%. But of course, it is not going to happen at 9%. But in this simulation, we just try to incorporate that scenario also when it is possible for India to achieve 9% year-on-year GDP growth. In that condition, there is no doubt that 5 trillion mark will be hit by 2025. Let's work on the next scenario. If Indian economy remains growing at the 8% year in year, then 5 trillion target is reached by 2026. So this also some kind of unachievable by seeing the present circumstances. Now we are coming to the most conservative estimate, which I hope you all will agree on this, because I mean, just a few months back it was growing around 7.1%, and just now the outlook has been revised to 6.1 and 2%, and then the next year outlook is 7%. So 7% we can consider it as doable, and I don't think anybody here have any conservations. Of any kind of doubt about 7% growth rate for the Indian economy in the next couple of years. So let's do it, man. I mean, that is doable. We did it several years, since several years, and why we are believing that it can be done, right? So I'm not taking 7, I'm not taking 8%, I'm not taking 9%. I'm doing now all calculations on 7%, by assuming by and large, and all economists and all analysts are agreeing this point of view that 7% is doable. So in order to proceed further, I'm building following strategic assumptions for 5 trillion Indian economy by 2025. The first strategic assumption is very obvious, that Indian economy remains growing at 7% year on year, which I convince you to get agreed. This is doable. We did it several times. So adding higher value through innovation. So this we discussed that how below the India is featuring as far as the global innovation index is concerned. So we have not utilized the power of innovations to full extent. So if you see the US, I kind of brought the data of US, the 50% of the GDP growth in US alone brought by the new innovations done in Silicon Valley and other high-tech cities of US, particularly driven by the startup and the entrepreneurship culture. So same kind of culture we are also trying to propagate in India, and we have some mixed success, and we have to pursue the innovation in a much bigger way, so that at least 25% of GDP growth we should target through the higher value add, through the newer innovation in the Indian economy. And the next assumption is expanding contribution of intangible assets by robust global branding and IP creation. So here India lacks. So if you see the big brands getting built up in the US and China, and we are also building brand, but we have to speed up our brand building activity. So new startups, including the existing successful firms, also should build its internal brand so that the chances of exporting their goods and services goes up in international market. And this all better brand building exercise will lead to the higher outflow of the orders, which will increase the GDP further. So target to create 8% of GDP through assets like IP and brands. So in US, they are creating 8.88% of the GDP through the intangible assets. So why not the India can target 8% at least? So this is my assumption number third, that we can target 8% of GDP through assets like IP and brands. So with these all assumptions, let me replot the strategic positioning of India in the global scenario. If you see India, where India is in 2019 and where India can be in 2025. Okay, so if you see 2025, if you position like this, that is increasing its GII index ranking and increasing its the per capita, per GDP per capita, it is possible to achieve the 5 trillion economic for the India in year 2025. So this I have shown in the projected outlook, where you see the other economies being also plotted over here. So in this graph, you'll see that India will surpass even Japan and Germany by 2030, and by 2025 it will reach the $5 trillion economy, and from there itself it will start taking lead and start becoming one of the top three economy, and preceded by only US and China. So this is how I see that through higher innovations and better brand building, it's possible for India to build a 5 trillion economy, even at the rate of 7% by 2025, and it's doable. And I don't want any person to be pessimistic about it. And after seeing this, my analysis and data, and I can say that you guys remain optimistic about such a growth target and work towards increasing the innovation in India and adding the higher economic value in its products and services, and also to build the brand across your businesses and services, or whatever you do, you know. So with these approaches, we can certainly build such an economy which can have the potential to cross even 20 trillion USD in another 1 decade. So with this, I'm finishing my special sessions on Indian economic outlook. And if you have any feedback and observation, you can contact me. My email ID is given here, sumant_parimal@innovaries.com. Thank you for your time and interest. Thank you.